Hi everyone, my name is Antony and this is PerryPictures. Today we are doing a tutorial on how to draw heads and faces. These are two different things that I think we need to talk about in order to draw characters in a way that is believable and aesthetically pleasing to the eye. So let's go ahead and dive in here. I've brought up a few images on screen just so that we can look at this from a couple different angles. There is of course the straight on face where you're actually able to get a very symmetrical look right down the center of the face on either side, and we'll go over that. We'll also look at the profile view so that we're looking at just the side of the face. We're going to go over a 3/4 view, which is what these two are. This is more of a 3/4 view on these top two images, and of course a top-down view as well, which can be very difficult. It was for me when I was first trying to draw a top-down view, but there are some tips that I can give you in addition to a couple other notes that I'm going to sprinkle in along the way. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I would like to do is go ahead and take these images that we have here and lower the opacity so that we can do a quick red line on top of them. Let's go ahead and start first with our character here in the bottom, this little elf character, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle, or more of an egg shape here. So this is the first circle that we usually start with when we're drawing a head. It's more of an egg shape, but that's kind of the circle that we're looking at. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up just a little bit because the head's a little bit smaller than what I actually drew. And what I would always do first after drawing this circle, divide that in half. Right after I divide it in half this way, I always divide it in half the other way. And this is for the entire head, not just the face, not just, you know, from eyebrows to chin. We're talking about the entire head. And then we are going to go ahead and draw a line that divides this quarter in half. And then we're going to draw a line that divides this quarter in half. And I'm always going to do this with a circle that represents the forward-facing plane. This might not look like much right now, but it is going to lead to something, I promise. We have our first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And what I always do with this is kind of look at putting my ears, the top of the ear and the bottom of the ear. So even if this wasn't an elf lady, and say this was a normal person, we're gonna go ahead and assume that the top of the ear is gonna come up here where this top quarter is. So that the very highest point of the ear, it would be at that first top quarter, and then the bottom of the ear is kind of going to come down to here where this one is, right? So this bottom corner. And I like to use the ears as a way to measure something else about the face. So it's kind of nice to be able to put these in first. I know a lot of people don't always necessarily like drawing ears, but I think that these can be very helpful with measuring the proportions of your face and kind of where everything lands on the face. So we have the ears here like this. We have here touching this bottom quarter line is the nose. So here we have our nose shape, and you can draw any kind of nose you want, but here's kind of where the nose is going to land on this grid. Your eyes go on this grid, this line. So this quarter here. So second quarter is kind of your eye quarter. The third quarter is where the nose goes, and fourth quarter is kind of where your mouth is. And this head is slightly tilted. She is kind of tilting her face a little bit, so it's not perfectly lining up with me dividing these. We are kind of still seeing the flat plane of the face. Up here, this top line, that's going to be kind of where the eyebrows go. Now her hair, her bangs are so long, we're not seeing any eyebrows, but this is where they would be. This top quarter, this is all head. This is all head space. We all need headroom. One of the big mistakes I think we often make when we draw faces is we'll go ahead and we'll be like, okay, so we have a nose, we have an eye, another eye, and a mouth, maybe some ears, and eyebrows. And the eyebrows come all the way up here to the top of the head. And in a really cartoony style, that's not necessarily bad. That could be really cute. You know, we could be having like a little bear here. But on a person, this doesn't really look right because we have a forehead. Just like a whole space is missing right here. So we save this top quarter. This is all like head space. We can do the same thing with profile view. So profile view, we're going to draw a circle as well for the head, but that is just the head, the cranium, because this forward part, this is the circle. If I was to draw a circle right here for the front of the face, this circle right here, this big oval, that is this circle that we drew over here. But in the profile view, it's more like this. So we have the circle for the cranium, for the head, and then we have this plane here, which is your face plane, And often you'll just kind of connect the two with a little swooping line, and that becomes your jaw. Your nose is going to come off of here right at the center. But you're basically going to do the same thing that we did over here with this plane. So let's go ahead and fill this plane in completely. And then let's talk about dividing it in half. Quarter mark, quarter mark. So top quarter, nothing goes up here except hair. This area, it's all hair. This quarter is where your eyes go, which is what we have here. That's her eye. Here on this quarter, this middle one, that's where the nose goes, which is what we have there. And here is where her mouth is. So basically the same thing here, and we'll do this again with a fresh sheet of paper where you can actually see me do this without redlining it on top of something else in case that this is looking at all weird. But those are the quarters. Use them same way for the face here. And notice how the ear back here, we have this ear showing a little bit out, poking out a little bit from her hair here. If you drew the lines across, let's go ahead and draw the lines across here. From the top of the ear, we're not going to draw a flat line. It's not going to be flat. It's going to be curved to follow the contour of the face. There's going to be curves. And then the bottom of the ear is going to curve a little bit as well. And these are going to line up with the top of your nose and the bottom of your nose. Same thing over here. So if we come over here, this ear is lining up at the bottom of your nose, and up here, the top of your nose. And the top of your nose kind of lands in this space right between your eyebrows, you know? So that's the top of your nose, that space in between the eyebrows. And the ear length from the highest point to the lowest point is basically the length of your nose. So it's one way to line everything up so that you know that they're kind of in the right place. Let's go ahead and look at 3/4 view. We're gonna draw the circle for the plane of the face, and we're gonna draw the circle for the cranium. And again, we're gonna connect these two circles like this, and that gives us our jawline. With 3/4 view, it's a lot like the portrait view, but instead of it being like a straight line, the way I was able to do that, and then the cranium here and connect the jaw, we do draw both circles. We're gonna be able to see our quarters this time. So we'll be able to draw that line there. When I'm doing a 3/4 view, you're not going to split this center line down the middle. If I was gonna do that, if I was gonna draw this center line down the middle, it would be here. But notice how the nose isn't there. That's not where that goes because this is 3/4 view, so we're gonna do a 3/4 split. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw this all the way over here. This is 1 part, 2 part, 3 parts. And this first quarter right here is going to be slimmer than both of these gradually. This will go into here 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm not sure if that's mathematically the best way to explain it, but that's definitely the way that I look at it when I'm drawing them. So now we have this here. We're gonna go ahead and take this out of here real quick because that was just the line for the cranium and I don't want to confuse that with my quarters. So now again, we're gonna take this front facing view, this face plane, and divide it in half. Okay, I'm gonna divide the top half in half, making quarters, and we're gonna divide this bottom quarter in half, creating quarters. And the same thing happens. Our nose ends here on that plane, our eyes sit on this line, and our eyebrows kind of reach up to that top one. And then mouth is right here in this quarter. We don't see an ear on this character just because of the way his hair is sitting, but if we did see one, and what I'm seeing right now is that we should have had a hairline, to be completely honest, that came down here like this. So really this space should not even be flesh toned. That should have been colored in. Follow the contour around this curve of the head, follow the contour around the curve of the head is gonna hit the ear there, okay? I wish I had a bottom up view where we're looking up under the chin. So instead, let's go ahead and quickly go over a top down view. And to do this, we are basically going to, again, start with drawing our face plane, which is right here, and then the cranium, which is here. The reason why these are going to look a little bit different is because we are seeing it from a higher angle. So we'll still divide it down the center, just like we did before. Half of that, half of this, and half of this. We've got our face plane, we've got our 4/4. Eyebrows come up to reach this line. Eyes come down to touch this line. And by the way, depending on the expression you're making, you don't always have to put the surprised looking facial arched eyebrows all the way up here. Obviously, your eyebrows and your facial expressions are going to be very versatile. You can do a lot with them. You don't have to always draw the same neutral blank stare face, which is why with her eyebrows being scrunched down here, like she has a very intense moody look. I didn't bring them all the way up to the line for a reason. But down here, the nose isn't quite touching this line, and the mouth isn't really even all the way under this line. It's very close. It's very close. So it may just be that I was eyeballing it, and that might be all that there is to it. Notice how up here, again, all of this space this space here, there is no facial features in this space. The only thing that goes here is forehead and hair. See, this is where top down gets a little weird. I knew that the grid was weird somewhere. Here's where it is. It's at the ears. We were having trouble placing the ears here because if we did follow the grid, the highest point of the ear would be right here, but the bottom of the ear would be all the way down here at the nose. So we would be looking at an ear that spans this entire space, and that just doesn't feel quite right. This flat plane isn't going to work applying these lines to the ears that are actually, when you think about it, they don't actually sit on the face. They're back here on the cranium, to be completely honest. They're nowhere on this plane, the face plane. They're not on the face plane. So that whole thing has a curvature. So what we're really looking at here is a very curved space. So if we're looking to put an ear back here, see where these lines curved and touched, if I were to follow them around the curve of the head, now we know why the ear is this shape, why it sits here and not on these lines way over here. So we are gonna go ahead and do this one more time up here. I'll go ahead and just stick with a black pen for now. If you probably were wondering, like, how do you know where to put the cranium or how to line it up? I sort of run it kind of right past the nose every time. When I drew it over here, I ran it past the nose as well. When I drew it here on this side profile, I ran it past the nose. So that's kind of how over here, his went a little bit wide. But yeah, if I followed this all the way back up, it would run past the nose. So yeah, that's kind of my placement. That's how I know where to place it. It just sort of goes right there. Divide this in half, divide it in half again, divide this in half. So here's where the eyebrows are right now in this drawing. And I can tell you right now, the eyes are not sitting up on this line. And this is why I wanted to look at a second one. The nose is also not sitting here on this line like you would think. Everything is bumped down, and there is actually a reason for this. Let's move this over for a second. There we go. So now that we've moved that over, let's take a look at why. For the top-down view, we are going to have foreshortening, which can go either towards camera or away from camera. And in this case, you can either look at it as the head, the top of the head has foreshortening toward the camera, or you could look at it as the further you look down the face, it has foreshortening away from camera. So instead of dividing this like that, I have instead moved that slightly further down to make this section smaller, moved this one slightly further down, again, shrinking this size. And so as we go up, instead of having equally spaced quarters like we had here, which we could still do, but if we wanted to make it a little bit more exaggerated, this angle, this facial feature, to give it a little bit more impact, we can exaggerate, which is what I've done. I've exaggerated this chin very, very small. I mean, the chin is that big. I've exaggerated, and look down here at her chin. Her chin is so much bigger, right? I've used exaggerated proportions here where the forehead is now so much bigger. The forehead is basically from the eyebrows up to here. The eye shape is that much space, the nose shape got that much space, and the mouth and chin got that much space. So notice how it's not equally spaced anymore. This space, the top space, the forehead that we're seeing, is so much bigger than the rest of the spaces because we have foreshortened our way down. Do you have to foreshorten it? No, absolutely not, but can you? If you want to, you can. And the effect that you're going to get is going to be very similar, if not just a little bit more exaggerated. looking at both of these. We have a lot of hair because we're able to look on top of the head here and see just how this is styled. We have the little pom-pom ponytails back here. We have a whole bunch of bangs, and we've even got the part of the center of the head back here. Here we have all the hair being pulled back into a ponytail back here, and then we can kind of see the hair fountaining out from the back of the ponytail. That is at the back of the head, and we're able to see it because we're in a top-down view. Now, the reason why I brought this guy over here is because I want to show you how even with non-traditional human characters, you can still use some of these same rules, okay? So I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I don't draw very straight circles when I am drawing really wide. So there's the cranium, right? And then here we have our face plane, okay? We're just going to go with like that. If that is our face plane and that is our cranium, let me go ahead and erase where they overlap now. We're gonna go ahead and draw a line down the 3/4 of the face because it's the 3/4 view. Let's divide it in half. Half of this face plane would be here. Half of that here, half of that here. Okay, so we already have our eyes in the eye quadrant. He doesn't have eyebrows because he doesn't have hair. He's a reptile, but he does have a brow bone. So that's kind of right there on that line. The nose does in fact protrude. Notice this. If we were drawing a traditional nose, it would protrude right here, right? Like this would be our nose. But because he has a snout, he's a reptilian, anthropomorphic kind of thing, we're gonna go ahead and take that nose and bring it all the way out like we did. And then we are now working in a whole nother kind of 3D plane, which gets a little bit more complicated. And I'm not going to go over all of that, but I just wanted to show you how initially, looking at this, the nose is really just an extension of the nose that we would already have. Okay, so let's start a new character from scratch. We'll go ahead and draw our plane for the face. And then let's draw one for the head. And we can kind of consider this more of a completely head-on portrait. But I haven't really talked too much about facial features and how to draw them. A lot of that comes down to your personal preference in style. You could do some really big, like anime style eyes, you know, and then just have these little, tiny little, like tick marks for noses. So we could do something like that. And then just a little, anime mouths tend to just kind of be like a little line as well. So we could do something like that, or you could go a little bit more Disney style with your noses and your eyes, your mouths. It's completely up to you, really. The fun thing about this, though, is that I could then just take something like this, mimic this eye, duplicate, flip a little nose like this. How to know how big to draw the mouth. Typically speaking, you want to basically take the center of the eye and bring that down, and that's going to be the corners of your lips. So then is kind of how wide you would want to make the mouth. Not any wider than that, or you're going to end up with a very scary looking character. And if that's your goal, if you want your character to look, and that's the beautiful thing about rules is you can really bend them to get different outcomes. If you want your character to look really scary, bringing the corners of the lips all the way out to like the corner of the eyes, the outer corners, instead of the center of the eye, can really help you to achieve that. So here we have our nose in the nose quadrant. We have our mouth in the mouth quadrant. Our eyes and eyebrows in the eye quadrant. And of course, all of this space up here is forehead. We want our ears to start back here on the head, and they're gonna end kind of where the nose ends, and they're gonna reach a height of kind of where the eyebrows are. So like that. Of course, we can also duplicate and carry over for perfect symmetry the ear that we had made on this side, just like I duplicated the eyes and flipped them if you want to. I'm gonna go ahead and stick with just hand drawing them both in for now. Notice I did not put them on the plane of the face. This one touched it a little bit. We'll fix that. We don't put the ear on the plane of the face because it is not attached to the face. That actually falls back, and that hairline that we all have kind of comes up before we reach that, okay? So here is our sort of hairline. You can do a square hairline if you want to. You can do a widow's peak if you want to, and just kind of like bring this down like this in the middle if you want a widow's peak. There we go, we have our hairline, following all of those different things we talked about in this video. I hope this helped out. I know that might not be the best example, but that's something I could draw in like 20 seconds, which is kind of nice, and everything looks pretty anatomically correct, and it's a nice way to just sort of start your character and then go from there. That said, I really hope you guys got a lot out of this video, that it was helpful to you, and if you have any other questions about things you would like help learning how to draw, drop them in the comments below, because I am always making art and animation content on my channel all the time, a lot of which are tutorials. So let me know what you want to learn how to draw next, and I will go ahead and put a video together for you.